All right, let me see if I can give you a little help in making icons in the schematic. Um, I need to do more work on this to make it a little bit easier, but let me show you what the schematic is capable of doing today with making nice looking shapes and things. So let me begin with a new schematic that just contains a bunch of wires. So I'm going to do it like this. You'll see what I'm doing in a moment. It's just a little easier to cut a hole in some wires like that. And let's have something going on here. I'm double clicking on the little box at the end in order to generate the net labels. And of course, it's just picking some random looking numbers. Hitting the tab key rotates the text, then move over text and type. I'm going to type in, and now I'm not going to touch the mouse. I'm going to do the down arrow on the keyboard, and that will move to the next presentation of the same type. In other words, it'll move to the next named wire. And I'm going to call this one in bar. I type INB. Then I'm going to go here and I'm going to type GND. I'm hitting the right key now, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to call this out bar, up, out, up again. That one didn't quite work. I had to move the mouse over it, but never mind, because it wasn't directly above. But there we are. We've got something with some ports on it. Inputs, outputs, and power. So the kind of normal way to generate an icon very quickly is really easy. You just save this guy away. Let's just call it demo. Let's call it demo, I don't know, icons, and just call it box, example one. Let's call it example one, for instance. Save. And there we go. Now we'll get a new schematic and we'll bring example one into it. Look, there's example one, drag it into it, and it's made a box. So that box was created automatically, and it's just, help you get going with a box. Now, what can you do with it in this state? Well, there's a few things. Most of the edits to a shape are got with the Alt key being held down. So, for example, let me first of all just tab that to rotate it, move that up there, for instance, put example one in the middle, I don't know, something like that, right? And when you have a small amount of things in the drawing shrinking and widening things work. So I'm holding down Control and the right key. I'm making the box a bit smaller, look. And similarly over here, I'm holding down Control and the right mouse button to do things like that. I'll move that example to there, the year one in the middle. So that's pretty, simplistic. You can move ports around. Just again, hold down the Alt key and drag that port to down there. Control Z works, of course. Here's one that you might not know about. Let me just expand that. I'm holding down Control and the right key and expand that. If I do this, if I select these things, click left, hold down Shift, click left, they're selected. I can move the mouse to somewhere else, like here, and hit the M key, M for move. Out will go to there, out will go to there. So we can jump around with the ports and things. Control Z, let's just put that back again to where it was. Most of the things that make an icon look good are decorations. So this output bar, for example, here, you can tell it that you'd like a bubble on that, and it puts a bubble on. Similarly here, input bar, just put a bubble on it. You can put arrows on things. Look, I'm touching the end here, and I'm going to say an arrow to this point here, etc. So things like that, decorations. One of the perhaps most interesting decorations is I'm holding down the Alt key again. Inverse clock, for example. Now that in becomes an inverse clock decoration on it. Okay, so what else can you do with icons? Well, one of the things that you might like to do, it's a methodology that some people like to use, is to drag another shape into the icon. So by that I mean here is a comparator, right? and I'm going to drag that comparator shape. Oh, before I do that, um, I get a lot of feedback of, well, why is this a horrible corner? The easy thing to do is the I key, change the corner radius. So I can just keep hitting the I key and it moves between all the possibilities. There you go, look, you can change the shape of it. If you particularly want to keep the shape, you just make that the default one. So now all things thereafter will be the same shape as that. But let me get to the point. Let me expand this again a little bit. You'll see why in a moment. And I'm going to drag that comparator shape and put it there. And it now says, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to just augment the shape? And I say, yes, I am. I'm just trying to make it look a bit more like an amplifier. Once I've got that, I could perhaps turn off these pin labels because there's an implication that the pin is what it is based on the internal shape of it. Let's just do that. Make those pins invisible. You can see what I'm doing, right? And then let's say, well, there's a gap there. How do I edit it? Well, again, hold down the Alt key and you can drag that line to there. Sorry, that didn't quite work out. Drag that. It's snapping to the grid. Hold down the Alt key. I have it on the end of the mouse now. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key and let it go. And it will snap to a much finer grid. Same thing here. Get that guy. I've got it on the Alt key now and let go of the Alt key. Hold down the Shift key, put it there, and it does that. Well, that bubble got bigger. Okay, well, let's make that bubble go away if we like. Take the bubble away. I don't know whether I want to do that. That's fine, looking like that. Okay, but how do I add new wires to it? Because you can see I need some new wires here. Let's turn this off, for instance. Get rid of that. It's not visible anymore. And let's get rid of this. Make this not visible anymore. And add some new wires. Well, again, I just hold down the Alt key. Hold down the Alt key and click and drag. Click and drag creates a wire. Once I've got that wire, I can move the ends to wherever I like. Let's move that one to there. Let's move the end of that one to there, for example. And hold down the Shift key and it snaps to a different grid. And then let's get this one. Let's get this guy, move him to there. And let's get the end of this guy and move him to, I don't know, to there. So that looks kind of nice. But I really need a bubble on the end of this one, don't I? I need a bubble in order to make it look more beautiful. So let's just go back to that and drag it out of the way for a minute. I'm going to put another wire in. I'm holding down Alt, click and drag, and I get a wire. And I'm going to say to this end of the wire, become a bubble. So that end of the wire is now a bubble, and I'm going to drag that guy and put him there. Oh, that's looking a bit ugly. I'm going to maybe stop at that point there. Something like that. Hold down the Shift key so it doesn't snap to the coarse grid. Get that end there, drag it across, and there we go. Reasonable, I think. So that's one kind of way you can do things. And the trick is the Alt key. Let me show you one more thing in this mode. There's a different mode of editing that we can use, but I just stretched the whole thing there. Let's say I want to add a new shape into here. Well, you've seen me put wires in. Once again, Alt, click and drag vertically, vertical wire. Click and drag vertically again, another wire. Click and drag horizontally, another wire. Get the end of that and put it on top of that. Get the end of that and put it on top of that. Get the end of that, and as I move it around, hold down the X key. When I hold down the X key, I can place it anywhere I like. So let's just undo that a minute or two, back to there. Get the end of this guy and hold the X key down and let's let him go on there. So now we've got a series of little lines. We can say to this icon here, we can say, I can't remember quite, merge cosmetic lines. That will turn any lines that form a closed shape into a closed shape. So that thing now has become a closed shape. Actually, it didn't, did it? I'm going to undo that because obviously I've got a little bit of a bug here because I didn't expect those things to go away. So maybe we'll put this guy in hiatus for a minute or two because I'll get back to that as they say. So perhaps that's not quite working as I expected. I expected that to turn into a shape that I can manipulate. I'll try that again in a minute. Okay, so that's the first little thing we did. We can augment a shape by dragging things into it. But most of the time, what I do is use an existing shape. So let's go back to that. Let's push into example 1 here. There it is. And I'm going to say to example 1 here, rebuild the symbol. Now, rebuild the symbol means disassociate the default symbol from the schematic. And once I've done that, I can click on any other device and have its icon become this one's icon. So for example, if I go to primitives and look at shapes, look, I've got a differential, here we go, differential output amplifier. Click right on it and say, copy the differential output icon, for example, 1. Now back to here, nothing changed over here. Icons don't work in the way that you might expect. Icons are not a separate file associated with everything. This guy's put a green dot up here. He says, hey, this icon, I don't think this is the default icon anymore. That's what the green dot means. It means this is perfectly fine, but this isn't the one that's currently going to be the default one. Let's go back to that again here and bring example in. Look, now the default one is that one. So now we've got two completely separate icons, both representing the same thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can have as many different icons as you need. What has to be the case, however, is the ports have to be isomorphic, meaning the ports have got to all line up. Let's see if they do. Let's move the mouse over there and hold down Alt key, and it says that one is called pause. Oh, it wasn't pause, was it? I think I called it VCC. So change that to VCC. Change that to be the input. Oh, that's okay. We got input. Add another one now to it. Hold down the Alt key, click and drag. Tell this guy here. Sorry, I did it wrong. That was adding up. I'm rushing too much. Click right on here and say new port, and it says you've got these guys to choose from. You're missing these two at the top above the line in bar. So that becomes in bar, and that guy, I say, I don't really need you to be visible, but why don't you acquire a bubble? So there you are, and then this one, holding down the Alt key, moving it away like that. Right. So we've got in bar. What's this one? This one's called neg. It needs to be called ground, right? Finally, this one presumably is already out bar, and this one is already out. Right, we're good. Now we can say, look, bring in this guy again, and we got the old one. Delete this guy, click right on this guy, say, you become the default, please. It says, okay, I'm now the default. So now when you bring it in, you've got that. So you can see how icons work in the sense that you can have many different icons all representing the same circuit. It doesn't matter. There's one which is special called the default one, which will be the one that appears after you bring something in. I'm just going to fiddle with this and make that bubble a little bit better if I possibly can. Make that bubble occupy 700.7. See, the bubble occupies a certain fraction of a distance, 0.1, tiny bubble, can't see it. And then here, 0.7. It's switching to engineering note. There you go. So that looks beautiful. Click on this and say use as default. So now we've got a nice icon for it. So that is how I tend to work, either live with the box one or do one of these. And again, this one will respond to that I key if you want it to be, change the pointiness of it, make it look like however you prefer it to be. All right, I hope that helps.